Okay, so here's the deal. Just replaced the bushings in my 2000 Volkswagen Golf TDI MK4. Now I know that they tell you on the website that the energy suspension, come on focus, that the energy suspension components will not fit the TDI. That's not true. So if you get this model here, the R just stands for red, but they'll say on the website they don't fit. So what you have to do when you're replacing these, and you can see these are pretty well wore, when you're putting in the urethane ones, polyurethane, you have to use a vise and put the dog bone in the vise. It's going to fit like crap, so be careful it don't pop out, hit you in the head. But when you go to put it together, there's not enough threads on the bolt to engage in the nut, which will fall out of the dog bone mount. You'll see it. It's a stupid setup. But anyway, that bolt needs about another ½ inch. So what you do, put the urethane bushings in the dog bone mount. Make sure you don't lose your little nut, not bolt, nut, and it falls out of the dog bone mount. You'll see. And put it in a vise. It's going to fit really sloppy because of the curvature of the dog bone. Take your time, put it in a vise, don't crank it down too much. Tighten it down a little bit, and that'll compress the outer piece that has the bolt going through it, the outer retainer. Compress that into the bushing, into the dog mount, enough for you to get a couple threads on that bolt. So when you do that, you get about 4 or 5 threads. Then go ahead and I used a Makita, so I used a Makita impact, and I went ahead and impacted it. But make sure you get about 3 or 4 threads started, and then don't over tighten it, because the nut that's holding that together is not the best. You'll see. So anyway, replace these. That's what they look like after about 400,000 miles. But my engine was shaking at idle and just sloppy, and I just figured, well, it's time to get it done, you know. I like to wait for stuff to get really wore out before I change it, see how long it'll go. That's me. So I think I get more of a thrill seeing how long this junk lasts rather than it is working on it, tell you the truth. So anyway, hopefully that helps some people out. I believe it's about 18 or 20 pounds on your bolts going into your subframe, and it should be about 30 pounds of torque going up into the transmission. This is what you want to order. Ignore the statement on the website that says this will not work on a TDI. It will. Find a way. You'll see. You guys aren't stupid. When you put it together, you're like, it's a ½ inch too long. Don't cut your urethane bushing down. Put it in a vise. Squish it down. Start your threads by hand, at least 3 or 4 of them into that nut that falls out of the dog bone mount, and then go ahead and hit that up with an impact. I tighten mine. Now here's another note. As you see the bolt coming through the dog bone mount, it'll go through this weird nut. Make sure that when you tighten that bolt down that you see at least one thread coming through that nut on the dog bone mount, okay, the nut side. And you'll see what I'm talking about when you take it apart. So there's no instructions with this, you just have to figure it out. Basically, I took a hammer and pushed this bushing out, beat it out of the dog bone mount with a hammer, right? Beat it through the dog bone. And there was another piece. When that came out, it was still stuck to the piece of metal. It's a piece of curved metal, right? So the old bushing is still stuck to this long piece of curved metal. You'll see when you take it apart. Just take a hammer and knock on that. Once it's in a vise, knock it out. It comes out. So anyway, your old bushing will come out. It's 2 separate processes. Take a hammer through the back side, pound it through the dog bone mount hole for the round bushing, pound it out with a hammer, and now it's still in your curved piece of metal, right? Set that in a vise, tap the top of it lightly, the old bushing, it'll pop out, it'll fall out, right? So you get the old bushing out of the way. These I just pulled out by hand. Yours might not be as worn, so you might have to take a screwdriver and pull them out. Keep in mind the orientation on these things, right? So this is the one that's closest to the subframe. It'll actually sit like this. See the indentations? That goes down inside the dog bone mount. And then, I don't remember how this one went, but pay attention to your orientation when you put it together. You'll see it when you take it apart. So, one other thing, when you torque in your bolt that goes through your new urethane bushing here, because the urethane bushing sticks through the mount about an eighth of an inch on either side. You got to be careful. You want to torque it, but remember you're going into aluminum, right? So it's supposed to be 30 pounds. I did 30 pounds and I didn't like it, so I did a half turn. Okay, so 30 pounds of torque and a half turn. Be careful, don't strip out your bolt, right? Don't crank it down like mad. The one that goes hard mount into the transmission, just keep that at 30 pounds. So hopefully that helps some people out on these energy suspension dog bone polyurethane mounts. Yes, it is going to be a hell of a noticeable difference in the vibration coming through the vehicle, but from everything I've read, after about 1,000 miles they settle in. So go ahead and get that done. I don't know what I spent, 40 bucks on this. I've used these in the past in the suspension, in the control arms, and I wasn't, you know, jumping up and down screaming for joy. I actually went to the Audi TTs, right, back to that, and they seemed kind of stiff for me, and I was just beating the shit out of my suspension. But everyone's a little different in how they feel about things, right? I was running 17s and low profiles, and it just seemed hard and everything. So in the suspension, I'm going to go with the Audi TTs, but the rest of the suspension I left alone, so I use the energy suspension. It's just where it's available, I use the Audi TTs. You know, the bigger bushing that sits in the control arm. So anyway, hopefully that helps some people out. You can get this stuff online. You're looking for this number, 15.1105. R is red, B is black. I don't know, I got this on eBay, like 40 bucks. So good luck. Hopefully that helps some people out. Have a good night.